Hey, and welcome back to the next episode of the Right Hand Drive Guys podcast. As usual, I'm Bobby. This is Aaron.
Yo, yo.
And welcome to episode 93. And, if you've been listening, the past few episodes have definitely been a little bit more knowledge-based, opinion-based. And we really were missing having some guests. It's always fun to give somebody else's perspective. You guys know us, but let's get to know somebody else. And so we're back to that, and I'm pretty excited about this one because he is like a local guy.
Yeah, as local as you can be in New England.
Yeah, as local as you can be, and we don't really get that very often. Obviously, we had Hartsock on, that was dope, but really he's the only local guy. So we're definitely excited about this, and his name is Derek Griffith, and he owns Northeast Auto Imports.
Yeah.
And it's basically like a right-hand drive dealership, right?
Yeah, it seems like it.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, obviously he takes in trades, finds good deals on left-hand drive stuff, but it's a lot of right-hand drive cars.
Right.
So, we figured we'll pick his brain. We'll see what it's like having, this type of dealership up in New England.
Yeah.
And just see how it goes.
Yeah, let's
get to it. All right. This is episode 93 of the Right Hand Drive Guys podcast, and this is Derek Griffith. All right, and we're back with Derek Griffith. What's up, man? How are you?
I'm excellent. Glad to be on, guys. How are you?
Awesome, man. We've been looking forward to this one because, to be honest, man, as you know, up here, especially north of Mass, we don't really got a lot of guys like you.
Yeah, it's definitely a bit of a uncharted deal to be up here in the Northeast with imports. Just pain in the butt to get from Japan to the East Coast is really the reason why.
Yeah, that's for sure. So, we kind of know a little bit about you, of course, but let's just tell the listeners, who are you? What do you do? Like, what's the deal with Derek?
Yeah, well, my name's Derek Griffith, and I own Northeast Auto Imports in Hudson, New Hampshire. We import cars from Japan. Every now and then we get stuff from elsewhere, but primarily Japan. Been open since 2018, and yeah, we sell a lot of weird stuff.
What got you in 2018, over in Hudson, New Hampshire, deciding that Japanese cars were the way to go?
Dad grew up in the car industry. I worked, at dealerships since I was 12 years old. They taught me how to do everything down there. And I don't know, I just didn't want to sell Toyota Corollas every day, like I didn't want the cookie cutter, high pressure, ridiculous sales tactic stuff. Like, I wanted to sell something that people wanted and they knew what they wanted. So I don't know. I got into it in high school, bought my first Skyline, I think maybe when I was like 18. And back then they were, $8,500 or something. They were so cheap.
Spoiled.
So yeah, exactly. It's ridiculous how much they've changed in the years. But yeah, I bought one from a guy in Lowell, a veteran, and he brought it from Okinawa with him to the States, and just decided to get rid of it. So fell in love with this car. I was just a GTST Type M. Nothing crazy. It was, I was a kid, so it was super cool for me to hear the turbo noises. I'm like, this thing's so fast. It's, it's got 210 horsepower or something, but I'm like, this thing's so fast. It's so cool. And I just loved it. I just thought it was so great. So I bought more of them. I bought a GTR off a sub base in Gorham, Connecticut. Did really well on both those cars, and I decided to pay someone to import the vehicles for me. And this was back when gray market stuff or black market stuff was very open. Like, it wasn't really an issue. Like, no one really cared about it. As long as you paid your taxes, they didn't care. So I paid someone to bring in R33 GTR for me. Everything went great, no problems. Brought it in. Loved it. It was like a N1 style V-spec car. Super, super cool. I had it for probably like 8 months. Took a little bit longer to get here than it should have, but whatever. I figured it was part of the deal. Sold it, did really well on it. And bought 2 more from the same guy, and they never came. So it was this battle. Yeah, it was a constant battle. It was a black R33 GTR and an R34 GTT car that was nice. They were both like very average cars, and But I mean, I had every dollar into this deal of,
Wow.
I was probably 20 years old at the time or 19 at the time, and they never came. So I got me so infuriated that I decided to figure out how to do it myself. And then all my friends wanted me to do it for them, and it just kind of spiraled out of control.
Damn. And so, what would you say? Because, I wouldn't, do I call you an importer or a dealer? Like, what's the difference between a JDM importer and a dealer?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we're both. I'm a registered importer, but I have a dealer's license. A lot of the people that are, quote unquote importers nowadays are more, they call them like curb stoners or whatever. They kind of import a vehicle through their personal name and then sell it through the import docs, or not title it or whatever. There's a lot of funky leeways and loopholes that you can slide through and sell a vehicle from Japan to here. I'm an actual registered importer. We title every vehicle we get, and then I'm also a dealer as well, so I can sell vehicles with templates, and I have
Oh,
all the
wow.
dealer documents to do everything that someone can come in and drive off the lot with a car already titled, everything done, inspection sticker on it, etc. So I guess that's the biggest benefit of like coming to someone like me versus going through a broker or an importer. But yeah, usually the importers primarily their job is just to get the car into the States, paperwork wise, and all that. So I can do both. So I guess that's the biggest difference between like me and someone else.
That's actually super legit. I mean, in the sense of, not everybody, but I've definitely bought a JDM car off of somebody, and yeah, they just give you the import paperwork and you're like, and whereas like I come to you, maybe, I don't know, but maybe it cost me an extra couple bucks, but I have a template, a title, a bill of sale, like everything's legit, and I can go right to New Hampshire or my state, maybe not Maine, who knows, they're crazy, but you know what I'm saying? You can take it right to the DMV and get it registered. I think that's pretty legit, and hopefully how the future kind of lays out. I would love to see more of that rather than these kind of backyard, kind of deals where then the end buyer ends up confused on how to even register this thing, right? So that's cool. I didn't really realize you could do all that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we definitely do get more money than buying from some backyard guy who only has a export cert and that's it. But like we try to make the process really easy on the buyer. We kind of, I wouldn't say federalize the vehicle because we don't really federalize it. It's just the car's here, the VIN number's in the federal system. We register them or title them under their original VIN. There's no, a lot of people kind of do some funky stuff. So I don't know. I think people trust us a lot with that. So yeah, we get a little bit more money that way, but you get to see, feel, drive a car, and you can see the title for it before you leave, rather than, hey, I think that title will be to you in 6 weeks. Good luck. Good luck on your trailer ride home because you can't drive it. So yeah, it's definitely a big benefit on our end.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I know you had something for him.
Yeah. So lately, of course, the R34s became legal. And for me personally, I feel like the JDM hype has just skyrocketed. And, people that weren't necessarily into these type of cars are now jumping into it. And, what do you think the next hype car will be that's going to become 25-year legal after the R34s are all, said and done?
Ah, man, that's such a good question to ask, because like the 34 is the pinnacle,
Yeah.
although arguably unaffordable for most people. It's ridiculous how much money they are.
Yeah.
But that's the pinnacle. That is the car that everyone was waiting for, quote unquote. I think really our first gen WRX in the States, that like early 2000s WRX STIs, those would be really, really popular, I think, because there's none left here in the States. And if they're here, they're usually rot boxes with 200,000 miles.
Like the bug eye, right?
Correct. Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Bug Eye. I think late 2002 they started the STI in Japan. I'm not 100% sure, but they had like a special model called, I want to say it was like an S203.
Yep.
Came factory yellow 5-speed, or maybe the STI was 6-speed, but I'd imagine that's going to be on the horizon. I mean, I deal with a lot of like other stuff too, so people are really excited about like stick shift diesel Land Cruisers and
Oh yeah, yeah.
like that. So like there's all sorts of other things that people get hyped up about, but like the car, I'd say I really think it's going to be that the GF, I think it's GF chassis, or is that what it's called? GF? No, GF is the wagon. But anyways, the whatever the GD, it's the GD, yeah. So GD chassis Subarus, I think, are going to be what's probably the next hot ticket.
Yeah,
Interesting.
I wouldn't have necessarily thought of the Subaru.
Yeah.
Not to say that it wouldn't be, but it's hard after, 2001, 2002, things really started to change, right? I mean, you could say the Evo 7, that'll be hot, right? The DC5 Integra Type R, those, but it's really starts to like trickle off after those, I feel like.
Yeah, that's like a huge concern for us too, because we're like, man, what are we going to bring in? But then I'm like, 89 GTRs are still selling for crazy money, and people want them like crazy. So, and I'm like, those have been legal for 10 years, so I'm like, we should be safe for a little while
Yeah,
at least.
yeah. Yeah, you'll have some stuff to kind of double back on. But so this is something I feel like that affects your business, and we're dealing with it here in Maine, of course, as you know. What's your take on some of these states banning the K cars?
Um, it's it's a hard thing to understand banning something completely. I guess I understand regulations on them, because really, are they made for our US highways? Probably not. But I mean, there's thousands and thousands of cars that are on the road that are not made for our highways either, especially in today's world. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we do some stuff with military vehicles. They've never ever seen NHSTA crash test data, but the federal government was allowed to use them, and so was the states for SWAT stuff. And I just think it's going to be going down to some sort of legal battle, or I hope that like our representatives are going to take care of us properly, especially in Massachusetts, where the K car groups in Massachusetts are insane. There's so many K cars in Mass, and then for them just to be out of nowhere remove them from the roads is hard to understand. I guess, like I said, if they made like, hey, we really want these things to be not on the highway, that's a compromise I think most people will deal with. But to say they're completely uneligible to be on the road is just ridiculous. So it definitely does affect the business I had. This came at the worst time ever. I bought like 25 K trucks, Honda
Oh
Active K
boy.
trucks, and as they landed in Newark, the first load, Massachusetts banned them. Like literally as they landed them.
Ooh.
Oh
Sweet. And I had
man.
3, 4 free sold, and I'm not gonna force someone to buy a vehicle they can't use. So it turned into a nightmare, because now everyone in New Hampshire is questioning, in Maine, and blah 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 blah. So I think it'll be turned back in Mass, but I mean, we saw Texas fought it, or Georgia, was it Georgia or Texas? They fought it like tooth and nail and got it overturned. So
That's
I
good.
imagine it's going to be
Yeah.
happens here up in the Northeast. And Maine did the same thing with Delicas a couple of years ago, and now they don't care. You can register Delicas, no problem. I got a bunch of customers with Delicas in Maine, and it hasn't been a problem. So I don't know. It seems like they just pick a fight with the small guy, and then a lot of the I love the K truck people. They're very eccentric. It's very they have a lot of time on their hands, So
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like, you're picking on the worst group of people to try to take their cars, and then they're like, the next group are going to be military trucks. Like, I'm like, you're going to tell the guy with a armored Humvee that he's not going to be allowed to drive it on the road. I don't know if that's going to be a good idea for you guys more than anything. Um, so yeah, it's definitely going to affect things, but I hope that through regular forms, things will get returned back to normal.
Yeah, and I can imagine, when you mention that group, those groups in Mass, like that's devastating to wake up, whatever, open your news and it's like mass bans these, or you get a letter even. You don't even hear and you get a letter that deregisters your vehicle. I mean, yeah, these people spent their hard-earned money on it and never had a warning, and all of a sudden you're just ripping out the carpet. I mean, that would be devastating. And yeah, I mean, up here in Maine, it's a weird thing. It's like just a huge miscommunication slash lack of knowledge, because this guy goes to try to register his GTSD behind us. They deny him. He registers it with his family in Tennessee for a year, goes back, and they let him register it, no problem. It's just one of those lack of knowledge things, I feel like, and everybody just needs to kind of get on the same page. But especially here in Maine, where there's such a lack of right-hand drive cars, it's not really getting brought up. It's not really making it to the top of the chain because there's just so few of us, So, yeah, I think it will take some real kind of collaboration between the people who really want it to get it noticed and everything. What do you got?
Yeah, so, dude, I mean, looking through your inventory, I've been doing it for years now.
Yeah.
And every time I go through, there's always a handful of cars where I'm like, what? How does he have this? Like, how did he even come across this? Like, right now you have an Impul R33 sedan. Been drooling over that thing since you posted it, man. Like, so what's the rarest vehicle do you think you've came across and sold?
Oh man, that's tough. This is a really cool story actually. So I have a really good friend of mine who's a big Porsche collector. And I saw a 993 turbo car come up just out of the blue. I'm like, this car just looks different. Like, I don't know what it is about it. There's something off about this car. It doesn't look like super heavily modified or anything. So I look, I get the grade sheet translated, and turns out it was called a Porsche Turbo S exclusive package. So I guess it got plucked off the assembly line at Porsche and brought over to the race division where they finished it off.
Whoa.
On their like race car. It was a whole separate plant. They put in like the whole reason why you can even know is the motor has a 911R stamped on it somewhere. So at the time I didn't know any of this. I just knew that it was a Porsche Turbo S, but it had roof wheels on it and it had a roof front bumper. I'm like, man, there's something about this car. So there's a roof in Japan. So Roof had special ordered that car from Porsche with like every single option, carbon wheel, carbon dash, like very, very odd car. And then they sent it over to Japan where Roof also modified it and put their THR 500 kit. So it made like 500 wheel. And this car like slid through the radar. No one knew what it was or if it was even there. And I scored this car for a friend of mine who has it still to this day. This was a few years ago. That was the most rare car. They said one of two ever produced.
Whoa.
And one of them was on Bring a Trailer from a huge collector called he's a California car collector and racer. I think his name was Mooney or Mr. Mooney. I forget his name, but he had the car on Bring a Trailer. And his car went unsold for like $499,000 or something crazy.
God.
Dang.
And it was just like for us to even just have our hands on this car was amazing. Like for us to bring it in and title it and do everything with it. It was very, very, very cool. That's probably the most rare car that we've had our hands on. I love weird stuff too. So we've had some really odd, like off-brand than the regular importer stuff, but that was definitely takes the cake for the most rare or most unique.
I'd assume your buddy didn't end up paying $499 though.
No, it was unbelievably good price. Like, I don't think that there will ever be a better deal than that in my lifetime. So I mean, like I said, it slid under the radar. It was such an odd deal. It wasn't advertised really all that well through the auctions. It wasn't.
Yep.
Like I said, I just saw. I'm like, man, that car's got a different front bumper than it should have on it, and those are roof wheels. Oh, that looks like a cool car. Maybe we should. I've always wanted a Turbo S myself. I mean, they're not attainable with how much money they are, but I knew this guy was a serious buyer, and I told him about it, and we actually missed it on the first week. It went unsold because we waited too long to put a bid in, and we were kind of back and forth on it. So I'm like, let's take a gamble, Mike. I'm telling you right now, you have to buy this car. and he bought it. And then we found all this stuff about it afterward. It was a very lucky situation more than anything.
um, so, there's a lot of people that listen to our podcast that maybe don't have a right-hand drive car, right? They want to, they're just unsure. And so, being a guy like yourself, the best question we can ask you is, what's your best advice for someone looking to get into a right-hand drive car for the first time?
I think I scare a lot of people off sometimes from buying stuff from us because I think I'm maybe a little too honest with things. It's not going to be an easy ownership. It's not an easy thing to own. It's not an easy thing to maintain on any brand, any make. Some are easier than others, but there's going to be times where your car's down for a couple of weeks because you're waiting on a igniter for your coil. There's going to be things that happen that you just have no control of, or very little control of. So they're not great daily driver vehicles, but they're great vehicles to be driven pretty consistently, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like you should have a good safe daily that is never going to let you down, or very rarely. And like I've sold cars to people that drive them every day for years and never have any problems. But I've also sold, I sold a 100 series gas Land Cruiser to a girl in New Hampshire recently, and it's been giving her a hard time. I'm like, that's the most ultra reliable vehicle to ever exist. It just, stuff happens and you have to deal with it in these older vehicles. Budget wise is another huge thing. I think people sacrifice their budget to try to get something cheap versus something good.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a very, fine line to dance on. The K trucks are the prime example. We get people all the time. They're like, man, $10,000 is way too much money for a K truck. I want to go buy one for 5,000 up the road. And then they come in and get jobs quoted through us, and it needs $7,000 worth of work. It's like, what, you just shot yourself in the foot. You could have been $2,000 ahead by buying something that's nice and has more options. So I guess the best advice I can give is wait until you have enough money to buy something that's nice. And then also don't expect too much from a 25 or 30-year-old car. They have issues. Every car has different issues, but be ready for your issues when you do own a vehicle like that.
Yeah, I mean, they say there's good and there's cheap, but I never really seen good and cheap. You know what I mean? It's one of those things. I agree with you 100%.
Very rare. Yeah, there's exactly. There's they say there's a triangle. It's good, cheap, and fast, or whatever. You got to sacrifice one side, and it's no different than these imports. There's always deals out there, but do you really need to deal with a deal? What comes after a deal is not always great. So
yeah,
and definitely not a great deal.
And that. Like you said, though, it's one of two things with these cars. This car's either been sitting around or this car's been getting used. Either way, it's gonna need some maintenance, right? And so when you do buy cheap, there was no money in there for somebody to do any of the maintenance. When you buy good, you're paying the money so that the maintenance is done and you can actually enjoy that car for a bit without necessarily dealing with all of those bushings and whatever it may be that has been blown out after the past 30 years, for sure.
Yeah, correct. Like a timing belt on a Honda Acti is like $1,300 to do. Timing belt water pump. You got to drop the motor. So it's like, if someone pays $5,000 for it, this what's that? It's almost 20% of what the vehicle's worth already. So it's pretty ridiculous. But
so it probably wasn't done for the $5,000 Acti. You're probably doing.
You're probably gonna need to do that belt.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, unless you score it, which happens, but I wouldn't bank on it.
So we did hear that you have some cool, different JDM items coming in. Can you give us a little preview, like a little hint of some of the cool stuff that they got coming in over there?
Yeah, I can. I actually got some right here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I got a few in the garage already, but stand-up jet skis. Yeah, we got a
JDM
whole bunch
jet
of stand-up
skis? Are you kidding, dude?
Yeah, these here were sold in the States, but I'm working on some that we purchased in Japan. And really what kind of got me super excited. I mean, I used to do those for years before I started buying cars and stuff. It was stand-up jet skis. Used to be able to get them for free, or next to free. Work on them, sell them. But it really kicked off my whole entire like buying and selling uh, career, I guess, or ordeal. I don't know, but man, I found a '95 X2 Kawasaki X2 in the crate in Japan, and for me to justify putting that in a container, I'm like, well, I'm gonna have to buy more of them. So I might have got a little bit carried away. I ended up buying like 25 of them, and I'm like,
Whoa, dude.
yeah.
Dang.
So it's worth a shot. I think it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be super fun. They're all some stuff that was never sold here, per usual. Generation 2 X2s were only sold in Japan. And then there's a couple like 550SX Memorial skis that they only made 300 of. We got 2 of those coming. Yeah, a bunch of round nose super jets, a brand new 750SX in the crate as well. So I mean, we got some
Wow.
really neat stuff coming. I mean,
That's crazy.
really, it's more for like me than it is to make a pretty big profit with. Like, I'm not gonna do as good as I do with my regular stuff, but I don't know. I think it'd be really exciting to have, a 40-foot container full of jet skis come into the lot, and people would be like, what the heck is going on
That's
over
gonna be
there?
insane.
Northeast jet skis. Yep, got it.
Yep. I would like, if it works out really well, I already have a name for a jet ski dealership and everything called Ski World. I think like it'd be a ton of fun to have like a unique little like jet ski business. That's it. I think I always loved them. I've always had one. And I don't know, they've always intrigued me. So I think it'd be really neat to have something like that.
Hell yeah. I mean, I didn't even realize that was a market. That's legit.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, the people that ride these things are like hardcore, like it's very, very vintage '90s. There's all sorts of like crazy go fast parts and stuff that have made a return. Like, people have bought old companies that are defunct and opened them back up and started making parts again underneath their original
Oh, wow,
brands and
that's
stuff.
cool.
It's really cool. Like, there's a whole world involved with the stand up stuff, and I was huge involved. I mean, I probably at one point probably had 50 or 60 of them when I was in high school. And like I said, I'd get them for free or next to free, and couple of weeks worth of work, and you could sell them and make money with them. But like, I had old ladies that were like, I just bought a camp and this thing's in the basement. Can you just come pick it up? And I don't want anything to do with it. And then
Classic.
I've had some guy call me, just give me $75 for this thing. I found it in the dumpster. It's like the nicest one I've ever bought in my life. And so it was a whole different world back then. That was when Craigslist was like really popular and stuff. But yeah, so I don't know. I'm really excited to do that, and I'm gonna meet a whole bunch of new people doing it, and we'll probably end up going to like the Jet Ski World Finals out in Lake Havasu and bringing some with me and trying to sell them out there and
Wow.
stuff. But I think it'll be pretty neat.
Hell yeah, man. Sounds like you got some good stuff coming up. All right, I got just one last thing, and so we kind of touched on it, but what is it like being a right-hand drive dealer in a place with so few right-hand drive cars? Like, is that a challenge? Like, is the pitch a challenge?
Yes and no. What's good is like we use a lot of platforms that are nationwide or even worldwide. So most of our vehicles end up leaving the state. Really, we sell a lot down south and out west. But the locals will drive past and ask a lot of questions. The amount that actually buy stuff is slim to none, but we do end up selling to. I mean, I've sold probably 10 to 15 cars to people just in our town. I met my best customer from him just driving past a lot and saying, "That's a really cool looking Land Cruiser. What is it?" And like, in the last year, we've done a ton of crazy project. Like, he bought another Land Cruiser Prado off us and put it on mat tracks and
Oh, wow.
all sorts
Oh,
of
wow.
crazy stuff. But that was like a guy that was just driving by one day. So The pitch is odd. Most people have to talk themselves into it if they're not familiar with the product. But what's good is like because of what we sell so niche, like someone already knows all the specifics of what comes in a GTST Type M, or what comes in a legacy GTB wagon, or what comes in a Mitsubishi Delica turbo diesel van. So they come in kind of pre-prepared. So the pitch to them is, hey, I have this vehicle and it's ready to go. So if you want it, it's here. If not, then no worries. You can go to California and try to find one out there. But we're in a very good spot because there's not a lot of competition out this way.
That does make sense for sure. I mean, you guys are absolutely the only people we've heard of like in this area. And that's dope, man. We're happy that everything is working out for you. I mean, we're always for sure rooting for anybody trying to do this type of thing, right? And so can you let the audience know, like, where can they find you? Where can they find Northeast Auto Imports besides Hudson, New Hampshire? Like, what's the website, the Instagram, whatever you got?
Yeah, so the website's super easy. It's just northeastautoimports.com. You can find us on Facebook, Northeast Auto Imports, and then we also have an Instagram page. It's Any Auto Imports. I really got to get a media person to come in and take cool pictures and stuff because we're slacking on the Instagram posts. But we have a YouTube channel as well, Northeast Auto Imports. I have a friend that does reviews on some of the cars that we have here. So all sorts of places to find us. Just reach out if you get any questions, and definitely help you the best I can.
Hell yeah, man. We appreciate you once again coming on for sure. It's been a blast. Hopefully, we definitely want to take a little trip over to Hudson, New Hampshire and check out the lot. We'll have to make sure you're there for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I got to come out and check up that shop too. That he looks like he got killer setup. It's like the dream setup.
Thank you very much, man. We appreciate that. It means a lot. But we'll let you get back to it, man. We appreciate you being on. And yeah, man, keep it up.
Appreciate it, guys. Looking forward to listening.
Hell yeah, good chat.
Dude, Northeast Auto Imports. Dude. Sounds like dude's pretty well self-made and like just got the itch and followed it.
Yeah. Dude, I mean, stand-up jet skis too?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, not
I didn't
to mention
see that one
like,
coming.
2018 isn't like a, bad year to start, right? Like,
right. I think that was right before, the
pretty
COVID
much.
boom, I guess you could say, where everything.
So that was probably a good little kickstart for him, it sounds like. And then, he's also an oval track race car driver.
Yeah.
And he's actually really good. And I've followed his career there for quite a while. And I'm just like, wow, okay, like, this is a weird thing to get into. Guy gets into right-hand drive cars and oval track racing. Like, it seems to be working out for him. He seems like he's pretty happy.
Yeah, why not, right?
Yeah, so like he said, go find him on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, all that good stuff. And, while you're at it, you can find us too at RHD GUIS on both YouTube and Instagram. If you haven't found our Facebook group yet, it's starting to really pop off. It's RHD GUIS JDM Boys. JDM Boys. So go on there, find that. But otherwise, man, we appreciate you listening for sure. As always, I'm Bobby. This is Aaron.
See ya.
Peace.